Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Global. We will get you top stories from India and the region. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh, and for news from rest of the world, I'm joined by my colleague Ollie Barrett in London. There you are, Ollie.
Here I am, Shubhendu. Hello, it's 11:30 here in London, 12:30 p.m. across Central Europe. Coming up in the next half hour, representing India at a summit in Uganda, the latest prospects for a two-state solution in the Middle East, and why British retail sales slumped in December. First, the headlines.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurates mega campus of Boeing India in Bengaluru. Hails Make in India, Make for the World, says project shows confidence of the world in Indian talent.
मेक फॉर द वर्ल्ड इस संकल्प को सशक्त करता है.
India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar participates in the 19th NAM Summit hosted by Uganda. Over 120 developing countries deliberate on the theme Deepening Cooperation for Shared Global Affluence. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu objects to Palestinian statehood that does not guarantee Israel's security. US reiterates two-state solution is the best interest of both Israelis and Palestinians. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the new state-of-the-art Boeing India Engineering and Technology Centre campus in Karnataka's Bengaluru. Built with an investment of $192 million, the 43-acre campus is Boeing's largest such investment outside of the United States. Prime Minister stressed Boeing's new campus in the country will become a cornerstone for partnership with vibrant startup, private and government ecosystem in India, and will help develop next-generation products and services for the global aerospace and defense industry.
ये मेक इन इंडिया, मेक फॉर द वर्ल्ड इस संकल्प को सशक्त करता है. ये कैंपस भारत के टैलेंट पर दुनिया के भरोसे को और अधिक मजबूत करता है. आज का ये दिन इस बात को भी सेलिब्रेट करता है कि एक दिन भारत इस फैसिलिटी में एयरक्राफ्ट ऑफ द फ्यूचर को भी डिजाइन करेगा.
And Prime Minister also launched the Boeing Sukanya program that aims to support the entry of more women from across India into the country's growing aviation sector. The program will provide opportunities for girls and women from across the country to learn critical skills in science, technology, engineering and maths, that's STEM fields, and train for jobs in the aviation sector.
मैं गर्व के साथ कह सकता हूं कि आज भारत के पायलट्स में से 15% विमेन पायलट्स हैं. और इसका महत्व तब समझ में आएगा कि ये ग्लोबल एवरेज से 3 गुना ज्यादा है. आज जिस बोइंग सुकन्या प्रोग्राम की शुरुआत हुई है, उससे भारत के एविएशन सेक्टर में हमारी बेटियों की भागीदारी और बढ़ेगी.
Earlier, Prime Minister met young girls who are part of the Boeing Sukanya program. The program will create STEM labs at 150 planned locations to help spark interest in STEM careers and education. The program will also provide scholarships to women who are training to be pilots. Prime Minister also interacted with Divyangs, or specially abled, who work in the aerospace sector. Also addressing the event, the Chief Operating Officer of Boeing, Stephanie Pope, said the new campus inaugurated by PM Modi reflects India's engineering legacy.
Today marks the latest chapter in decades of collaboration and partnership between Boeing and India. Prime Minister Modi, your focus on growth of aviation in India has been instrumental in making these programs a reality today. This new campus is a testament to Boeing's engineering legacy and our belief in the availability, depth of talent, and capability that exists here in India.
Earlier, Prime Minister Modi laid the foundation stone of Atal Mission for rejuvenation and urban transformation projects worth more than $240 million in Maharashtra. In the city of Solapur, Prime Minister dedicated more than 90,000 houses completed under PM Awas Yojana Urban. He dedicated 15,000 houses at Rainagar Housing Society in Solapur, whose beneficiaries comprise thousands of handloom workers, vendors and powerloom workers. Prime Minister also launched the distribution of first and second installments to 10,000 beneficiaries of PM Swanidhi in Maharashtra. PM visited the houses at Rainagar Housing Society in Solapur.
आज पीएम आवास योजना के तहत बनी देश की सबसे बड़ी सोसाइटी का लोकार्पण हुआ है और मैं जाकर के देख के आया, मुझे भी लगा कि काश मुझे भी बचपन में ऐसे घर में रहने का मौका मिला। ये चीजें देखता हूं, मन को इतना संतोष होता है। इन हजारों परिवारों के सपने जब साकार होते हैं तो उनके आशीर्वाद मेरी सबसे बड़ी पूंजी होते हैं।
Moving on, White House is pushing for two-state solution after Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu objects to Palestinian statehood. Ollie Barrett is in London, gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Ollie, the idea of two-state solution takes center stage again.
It does, and we now have US reaction actually, Shibendu, after the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejected that push for Palestinian statehood. Washington says that President Joe Biden has always maintained that a two-state solution is in the best interest of both the Israelis and the Palestinians. White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby says Palestinians have every right to live in an independent state and also insists that Joe Biden and his team will continue working on that basis. Earlier, Benjamin Netanyahu says he opposed the creation of a Palestinian state that doesn't guarantee Israel's security.
For 30 years, I have been very consistent, and I say a simple thing. This conflict is not about the absence of a state, a Palestine state, but the existence of a state, a Jewish state. Therefore, I clarify that in any arrangement in the foreseeable future, with an accord or without an accord, the state of Israel must have security control over the entire territory west of the Jordan River. That's a necessary condition.
Israeli protesters have blocked a highway in Tel Aviv demanding the release of hostages in Gaza. The protest came on the day a gathering was held in the city to mark the first birthday of Kfir Bebas, the youngest hostage held in the enclave. Over 240 people were taken hostage by Hamas on October the 7th, with around half being released during a short-lived truce in November. Well, let's go live now to DD India correspondent Sarah Coates, who's joining me live from Tel Aviv in Israel. And we've been hearing, Sarah, from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and a Washington response. Where do we find ourselves on the idea of a two-state solution now?
Hello there, Ollie. Well, look, very opposing views here, and it certainly does appear as though a rift is developing between these very close allies. But look, the United States continues to say that its support for Israel is ironclad. But look, going forward, what we need to remember is there are a lot of other areas that are really heating up, tensions growing right across the Middle East. We're talking here about the Red Sea with these increased attacks by Yemen's Houthi rebels on ships travelling through that area. 5 strikes from the US in the space of a week on Houthi targets. We're also talking about Israel's northern border with Lebanon. That is certainly a very concerning area, given that there are so many troops on that border. They are currently simulating drills of an offensive inside Lebanon. We've heard from the Defence Minister, Yoav Gallant. He has said that a war in Lebanon is becoming more and more likely. The United States has already been trying to negotiate with Hezbollah, trying to get it to pull some of its fighters back off that border. And then, of course, there is the West Bank. There have been ongoing daily raids in the West Bank since October 7. Israel says this is to clear terrorists, but the United States is extremely worried that this could be the next front. This could really explode. And look, what we've seen over the past 45 hours is a raid in a refugee camp in Tulkarem refugee camp. 8 Palestinians killed, dozens more arrested. So this is extremely, extremely concerning for the United States. It's really got its hands full here, to say the very least, Ollie.
Sarah Coates in Tel Aviv, thank you. North Korea has conducted a test of its underwater nuclear weapons system in retaliation for joint military drills by the US, South Korea and Japan. It claims it includes nuclear-capable underwater attack drones.
I'm going to keep streaming,
the US,
guys.
Japan and South Korea have conducted a 3-day naval drill as part of efforts to improve their responses to Pyongyang's nuclear and missile threats. Andrew Wood reports from Hong Kong.
North Korea hasn't really given any details of this test, exactly where it happened, exactly when it happened. It's possible that North Korea may well have been planning it anyway and decided to keep it quiet. But the naval drills between South Korea, Japan and the United States, the 3 countries that North Korea dubbed as its worst enemies, took place this week. So it's an opportunity, a propaganda opportunity for the North Koreans to announce this and remind the world that it's developing these weapons. Even if it is a case like that, it was a case of opportunism by the North Koreans, though it doesn't really improve the situation in the region. It probably makes it worse. It makes the tension a little bit more tense. So, as I say, it might have been something that the North Koreans were going to do in secret anyway and not tell the world. But this probably does make the place, the northeast of Asia, a more dangerous place, I think. You know, this is the second time that we've known about a test, or at least that North Korea has claimed it had a test. It first tested it, the Hale underwater drone, back in March last year. And at the time, it said this was designed for sneaky attacks in foreign waters, enemy waters, and also for attacking groups of warships. And that's pretty much, you know, what we see with a US carrier strike force, you know, a big aircraft carrier with several support ships, or also for overwhelming ports. Remember, hail means tsunami in Korean, and the idea of this is that when you explode the nuclear weapon underwater, it will create a radioactive tsunami, a gigantic wave that could overwhelm these ships and overwhelm ports.
Rare footage has emerged from inside North Korea showing the sentencing of 2 teenage boys to 12 years for hard labour for watching and distributing South Korean films and dramas. The 16-year-old students were handcuffed in front of hundreds of peers during a show trial. The video was obtained by a South Korean think tank. The exact date of when it was shot is not known. Returning to the Middle East now, and Yemen's Houthi rebels have launched 2 anti-ship ballistic missiles at a US-owned tanker vessel. No injuries or damage reported as the missiles hit the waters near the vessel. In the second attack earlier this week on a US-operated vessel in the region, the Genco Picardy came under attack in the Gulf of Aden on Wednesday, sparking a fire on board and prompting the Indian Navy to rescue the crew. India diverted a warship deployed in the region to rescue the 22 crew on board the Genco Picardy, including 9 Indians. The crew were all safe and the fire was extinguished. Deputy Pentagon Press Secretary Sabrina Singh at a briefing has said that the US is not at war with the Houthis in Yemen. She says the US is acting in self-defense and responding to attacks on vessels in the Red Sea.
No, we don't seek war. We don't think that we are at war. We don't want to see a regional war. The Houthis are the ones that continue to launch cruise missiles, anti-ship missiles at innocent mariners, at commercial vessels that are just transiting an area that sees, 10 to 15% of the world's commerce. The U.S. is what we are doing with our partners is self-defense.
The US and Japan are looking to make a deal for Japanese shipyards to regularly overhaul and maintain US Navy warships so they can stay in Asian waters ready for any potential conflict. US Ambassador to Japan, Rahm Emanuel, has emphasized that conducting ship repairs in Japan instead of the US would enhance regional military deterrence by maintaining military assets in the area. He was speaking at the Yokosuka Naval Base near Tokyo.
If we ever have a hot situation, which I hope never happens as a father of a Navy officer and as an American, you don't want to start training and working together in that type of tense situation. You want to do it beforehand. That's why we train together, so therefore why we should repair and maintain together. And keeping ships in theater is part of our deterrence.
NATO will launch its largest exercise since the Cold War next week, with around 90,000 personnel set to take part in the months-long war games. More than 50 ships, from aircraft carriers to destroyers, will take part, as well as more than 80 fighter jets, helicopters and drones, and at least 1,100 combat vehicles, including 133 tanks and 533 infantry fighting vehicles, all joining the Steadfast Defender 2024 drills, as they're called. The war games will contain a simulated emerging conflict scenario with a near-peer adversary. During the second part of the Steadfast Defender exercise, the focus will be on deploying NATO's Quick Reaction Force to Poland. British retailers suffered the biggest drop in sales for almost 3 years during December. According to the official data, retail sales volumes shrunk 3.2% between November and December. It was the biggest drop since January 2021, COVID pandemic time, and it left the level of sales at its lowest ebb since May 2020, again early in the COVID pandemic. The data suggests that many Britons did their Christmas shopping earlier in November than normal because of the so-called Black Friday sales. That's it from me here in London, Shibendu, and I'm still waiting for my Christmas present from you. Maybe you got it in November.
Well, for now, have a great weekend ahead. Thanks very much, Ollie. And moving on, still to come on DD India Global. World's first AI-powered smartphone has been unveiled in South Korea. First glimpse of the idol inside the Ram temple in Ayodhya.
At this very special presentation of DD India, we take a deep dive into the history of Ram Temple movement.
Bhaya Pragat Krupala Din Dayala Kausalya Hitkari.
राम काज किनु बिनु मोहि कहाँ बिसरा.
Do watch this special documentary on Ram Temple movement retold on 19th of January at these times.
बोला आप कौन? अरे वो सब छोड़ो, बहुत बढ़िया इन्वेस्टमेंट स्कीम आई है. आज 2000 डालोगे, कल 4 मिलेगा, परसों 8, फिर 16, फिर 32, फिर 64. लिंक भेज दिया, जल्दी क्लिक करो.
यूपीआई कहता है इन फर्जी इन्वेस्टमेंट वाले स्कीमों में ना फंसो, अपने पैसे का ध्यान खुद रखो. क्या समझे?
क्या समझेंगे, आप ही समझा लीजिए, हम क्या समझेंगे.
आप भी ये जानकारी शेयर करें और अपने आसपास के भोले को बचाएं.
We are taking up the legend of our great epic, the Ramayana, and how it has influenced so many parts of Asia.
Developing countries. India fully supports Uganda's theme for NAM, says it is eager to engage with the movement under Uganda's leadership. And India's IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav held talks with prominent personalities on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos. Indian Minister met Abdullah Al-Sawah, Saudi Arabia's Communications and IT Minister, expressed their commitment to strengthen Indo-Saudi cooperation on the digital economy and emerging technologies. He also met Amazon CEO Andrew Jassy to deepen the company's engagement with India, Post and Railways. Back home, the Indian government's outreach program, Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra, is seeing popular engagement amongst people. The Yatra reached Azamgarh city in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh. Union Minister of State for Statistics and Programs and Planning, Rao Inderjit Singh, took part in the program where he praised Prime Minister Modi for great initiatives. He further said that small people will also be linked with mainstream registering through this camp. The same beneficiaries thanked Prime Minister for the public welfare schemes run by the government. Let's now turn to other stories making news around the world. International Monetary Fund has said economic reform programs implemented by Sri Lankan authorities is yielding the first sign of recovery. But the country still faces challenges as these improvements need to translate into improved living conditions for Sri Lanka's people. World's first AI-powered smartphone has been unveiled in South Korea. The phone features real-time translation in 13 languages. Until now, such AI-based services were available only when connected through a server. Through internet, now such functions are embedded in the smartphone itself. And now we track all the developments in the temple town of Ayodhya. Ahead of Ayodhya's Ram Temple consecration ceremony, the idol of Lord Ram was placed inside the sanctum sanctorum of the temple. First glimpse of the idol inside the temple has now been revealed. Made in black stone, the idol depicts 5-year-old Lord Ram in a standing posture. A veil covers the face of the idol. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath held a meeting with officials ahead of Ram Temple consecration ceremony on 22nd January in the Indian city of Ayodhya. Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath also visited the banks of River Saryu to inspect the arrangements ahead of the ceremony on 22nd January in Ayodhya. On to sports now. The 6th edition of Khelo India Youth Games is set to witness a glittering opening ceremony in the southern state of Tamil Nadu. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate the Khelo India Youth Games on Friday. The games, which are taking place in South India for the very first time, will witness the participation of around 5,600 athletes from all across India who would showcase their skills to bag the top honours. The sporting extravaganza set to begin. That's all for this edition of DD India Global. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Twitter and Instagram. You can also find us online at ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Global. Namaskar.